My name is Angela Grippo. I am a professor in the psychology department at NIU. And in my laboratory, we are interested in studying the interactions of stress and social experiences and how those influence our psychological health and physical health. In ASHES, I thought the science was very interesting. I was particularly interested in the discussions of people who were awakened by the pulses or people who were spared from the damage to the brain. In particular, I liked the way the author presented information about people whose brains were already damaged and how they may have been somehow affected differently than individuals who had fully developed, normally functioning brains. Many psychological disorders can influence the brain. Alzheimer's disease, for instance, which is one of the disorders that was mentioned in the book, is particularly involved in affecting the way cells communicate information. And areas of the brain, such as the hippocampus and the amygdala, are areas that are important in memory processing and the processing of information. In Alzheimer's disease, these areas become damaged, and individuals experience memory impairments, disorientation, and problems processing certain types of information. Another condition that was referred to in the book is post-traumatic stress disorder. And this is a disorder where there is a hyperactive stress system in the brain. PTSD can occur usually after a very traumatic event. So, for instance, somebody coming back from a combat situation in war may experience PTSD. And it is thought that the stress of that traumatic event activates areas of the brain in a very unique way, so that after the event, those areas become sensitized to stress, and they are hyperactive such that even something that would normally be neutral might cause stress in an individual's brain with PTSD. And that is partly the result of glucose, and as well as hormones like adrenaline and epinephrine. So the brain uses electricity and chemicals for communication, and this communication is critical. It is the basis of all of our thoughts, feelings, and actions. So in the book, there was some electromagnetic pulse that affected communication in the brains of potentially 3/4 of the population. And if this were to happen in real life, that electromagnetic disruption would have a profound influence on the way people experience emotions and the way they behave. And I think that is what might have happened in the book. Individuals with certain types of brains may have just dropped dead. Other individuals had problems with their ability to manage stress, and some people, of course, became violent and wanted to perpetuate that violence against other people. So in the past, people were treated with electroshock therapy for many different kinds of conditions. The thinking behind why that works is because if communication in the brain has become disrupted by a certain disorder, for instance, depression, shocking the brain with a little bit of electricity, if the doctors know how much to give and where to put that electrical shock, can actually re-normalize that electrical communication. That is the thought behind why electroshock therapy might have been effective for some patients who were not responding to medication. In the book, apparently the electrical impulse was too great, and for many people that meant they weren't able to survive that disruption. For others, it was interesting that some people were spared from that. Potentially those are the brains that had some disruption in the first place, where the electrical impulse may have somehow normalized or improved those individuals' brain function. Using electrical impulses to activate a part of the brain is very similar to using electrical impulses to start a heart if it has been stopped. So there's the same process that occurs. We have cells in the heart that are communicating information to help the heart beat and pump blood, and we have cells in the brain that are communicating information to help us behave and think and move around. And it's the same process that would be used to stimulate areas that are somehow not functioning. So the main character, Alex, in the book had a brain tumor, and that affected her ability to smell certain things, and sometimes she smelled things that were not real. Brain tumors can affect the functioning of the brain depending on the location of the tumor and its size. So if a brain tumor is pressing on an area of the brain that processes olfactory information, which is our ability to smell, somebody may theoretically smell something that is not real or potentially lose the ability to use that sense altogether. So in the book, there was reference to cannibalism. Cannibalism actually occurs in nature quite often. For instance, small animals like rats and gerbils and rabbits may resort to cannibalism. This often occurs when food and water become scarce, so that the remaining animals have a better chance of survival. People, however, usually think of cannibalism as disgusting and socially inappropriate. So if there were a disease that damaged the brain, leading to cannibalism in a human, the damage may have occurred in areas of the brain that engage in rational decision-making and interpreting of social information, therefore leaving intact the instinct for basic survival that is now the driving force behind somebody's behavior. So advice that I have for teens who would like to study psychology is that I think it's a really good idea to look at colleges and universities that have a wide variety of psychology classes that they offer. The nice thing about psychology is that it allows us to ask questions about human behavior and human nature. So many schools will offer classes on abnormal psychology, for instance, studying depression or anxiety or schizophrenia, or cognitive psychology or social psychology, or neuroscience, which is the study of the brain. I also suggest that students seek out research opportunities in psychology. Conducting research in psychology allows students to take what they're learning in the classroom and apply it in another setting, and they can learn about a very detailed issue related to psychology, the methods that we use to study that issue, and how psychology relates to everyday life. At NIU, we have a very large psychology department, and many of the researchers here have opportunities for students to come, for instance, spend a little time in the summer and learn about conducting research. Sometimes high school students will come and visit our laboratories and see what kinds of projects people are doing. I went to a very small school. I took a psychology class and I realized that it was very interesting to me. I really wanted to know more about human behavior and the way that humans think and feel. And I thought that psychology would be more interesting than going to medical school. So I switched my major to psychology when I was in college, and I got involved in research. I did some research with children, and then I did some research with animals, and that led me to go to graduate school in psychology, where I pursued research using animals. And I still use animals now in my research here at NIU.